Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the WRRAP podcast with me, Lee G. Joining me, as always, is the happy crew, Jamie, James, and Harley. Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening.
Evening. I wouldn't call myself a happy crew, but okay.
I haven't rubbed the weekend's game in at all, mate. I barely mentioned it. I haven't even got started on it. So, you've got nothing to be unhappy about, Harley. So, special guest this week, rugby analyst extraordinaire, Sam Larner. Evening, Sam.
Evening. Thank you very much for having me.
Is rugby, is that a fair description of you, do you think?
Well, I wouldn't claim the extraordinaire part, but yeah, I'd say analyst is about bang on for the majority of stuff I'm doing.
So for the rest of us, when your job is sit and watch rugby, I think that's a pretty good job, to be honest. I think that'll be a good thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to complain, really. It is pretty perfect.
Cool. Well, we shall be having lots of conversation about rugby analysis and why Strictly is so important for the future of rugby after. But we shall start, as we normally do, with Drink of the Week. So I'm going to go first this week because I've actually got a beer this week that you can see through, which is the first one in about 6 weeks that I think I'll actually get to the bottom of that pint. Even the one I had last week, which was like nearly see-through, I got to the bottom and the live yeast was at the bottom. And it's just not a good look when you get to the bottom and you go, how much of that have I drunk? So this week it is a Cwrw Gorslas from the Glamorgan Brewery, which is a decent ale. It's nice enough. And if we can't get anyone else to sponsor us, then I'm going to go for them. They will do me. So speaking of people begging for beer companies to sponsor us, Jamie, what have we got this week?
So this week I've got something from Vault City, who are based in Edinburgh. It's a sour beer. I've got a triple fruited mango. It's a really lovely colour on this as well. Have a look at that. Really, really nice colour.
That's orange squash, man. That's not beer.
it's listen, if you taste it, it's not orange squash. I can tell you that right now. So it's 6.2%. So it's quite strong. You gotta be careful on this. This is the first time I've had it, and I have to say it's probably a little too sour for me. So I can't see me drinking all of it. But yeah, it's okay. It's just a little bit too when you drink it. So yeah, but it's nice, but too sour would be my my review of it. So I have to give it like a 6 out of 10, I think.
So do that bit again. It's a little bit too.
It's a bit too. You know when you try something sour, and you're like, it's a bit like that. So yes, it's not very nice. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Harley, what have you got this evening, my friend?
Well, my throat's a little bit sore after the weekend, shouting and screaming at a load of yokels throwing flame barrels of tar at each other. So I'm double part. So I've got the more boring is a cup of tea in my Celtic conspiracy mug. Mm-hmm. And then the more interesting one is following Lee's experiment of getting the wife to buy some beers. My wife got me this over the thing. So it's the Magic Rock Brewing, and it's called Fellow Summit. So it's a mountaineering themed brewery, and then it's a lot of puns. So it's 6.5%, which Lee will be pleased to know because he loves his nice strong ones that he slurs at the end. And I'll be honest, it looks like something you'd find up a mountain.
It looks like yak spits.
But yeah, it does look like yak piss. But actually, not bad. Very hoppy, which I quite like.
Okay, cool. James, can you top that?
No, I can't actually. It's like me the Tiny Rebel. I've been a bit under the weather since playing on the weekend, so I've gone through the most see-through beer of them all. Nice glass of water.
I see. I thought we were building up to something there.
The Equalizer IPA from the Tiny Rebel, which is a 5.8% IPA, which I'm very much looking forward to drinking, which I might, if I feel up to a drink on the Irie, test the waters. But no, I'm going to be safe and go for water today.
Okay. So, Sam, are you going to venture into Drink of the Week, mate, or are you going to play it safe?
Well, my drink of the week is out of arm's reach and empty as well, actually. But it was a lime and soda, which I'm a big fan of. If you wanted something
Nice.
more alcoholic, as a suggestion for anyone, because I've got quite a sweet tooth, amaretto and apple juice is probably my drink of choice. Which is also, it's kind of like the drink you would get in, like a detective drama from the 60s, like one of the, someone would order an amaretto and apple juice, but it tastes like apple pie. So I'd strongly recommend it.
Jamie's there then. If it tastes like apple,
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that.
Cool. Okay, so let's move on to news desk. And Jane, what have you got on the news desk this week? There's no introduction music for the news desk this week either.
Good. Right, let's start off with some signing news then. So the Ospreys have announced a signing of prop James Kenny on loan from Exeter Chiefs. Kenny has made 33 appearances for the Chiefs and has also represented England at under-20s level. Are we aware of this chap, James? Have you heard of him before? Because I haven't.
I had not. I have spoken to some Exeter Chief fans who have said, good boy, probably a bit underutilized.
Okay, well,
best way I could describe it.
Yeah, that could be a handy pickup then. In the big news that was announced last night, Lee Halfpenny has signed a 1-year deal with Super Rugby side Crusaders. Halfpenny said, I've always watched Super Rugby and Crusaders are the team I've always followed. I'm extremely grateful to have the opportunity to join one of the best clubs in the world, and I can't wait to meet everyone. Two things about this, I would say. So first of all, I think it's a really good move for Lee, and credit to his agent because he's done well to secure a move like that at this stage of his career. I will say that. And secondly, I thought it was a really nice touch by the Crusaders to use the Welsh language on their socials when they announced it. I thought that was really nice and quite classy. I'd like to get your thoughts on this, Sam, actually. So what do you think of this move for Halfpenny, moving to the Crusaders? Do you think he's a good fit for Super Rugby? Because I saw a tweet earlier from Tier 2 who said that he didn't think it was a good fit for Lee Halfpenny in Super Rugby. But what are your thoughts on that move?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think similar to what Shane Williams did at the end of his career, where he went to Japan and, from what I hear, got offered an obscene amount of money to go to Japan. I suspect Lee is probably getting offered a fair chunk of money to see out the last year of his career. Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, I think that Super Rugby is not as a block, it's not totally different to anything in the URC. There's teams who play differently to one another. I think his skills will be needed over there. But I think, to be honest, it's a good move just personally to go and play rugby in a completely different culture, a completely different environment. Obviously he's done France, he's done Wales, but I think ticking everyone off would be something that probably we all want to do if we had professional careers, is do a bit of traveling and move around a bit as well.
Yeah, it's a good move for him, I think, and let's hope he stays injury-free as well. Fair play to him. So that's Lee Halfpenny. He's going to New Zealand. Sorry, Lee, did you want to say something?
Well, no, I was going to say that when he says he's looking forward to meeting everybody out there, is it the physio, all of the backroom team, everyone that's going to patch him up every week and send him back out if it's anything like his time at the Scarlets. So, yeah, but again, everybody wishes him well, but I would prefer that he went to play in Japan where they're not quite so big and brutal. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, it sounds slightly salty, Ali, but I get your point, what you're saying. Good luck to him, I say. I've got some bad news now. Let's go on. Come on then, Ali.
I was going to say one thing that will really upset Tier 2, who seems to be so wrong on some levels. By the rumours, because obviously Richie Mo'unga's gone on a sabbatical, they're apparently pegging him to start playing 10 for the Crusaders. And there's an option that he'll be playing 10 for a couple of games. But I've always thought Crusaders are probably the most northern hemisphere of the Super Rugby teams anyway. Like, they're not afraid to go to the forward game and play 10-man rugby if that's what will win it.
Yeah,
that's a good thing for Lee Halfpenny.
Yeah,
and potentially step to coaching.
Yeah, definitely. You can see him as a coach, can't you? In the future. So best of luck to him. And like I said, let's hope he stays injury free. Now, speaking of injuries, bad news roundup, I'm afraid. So Sam Costello was facing an injury layoff after damaging both his shoulder and his hamstring in that silly exhibition game last Saturday. So not good news for Scarlets or Wales. And more bad news for Scarlets is that their captain Josh McLeod faces at least 2 more months on the sidelines after suffering an ankle injury in training. Scarlets head coach Dwayne Peel described it as and I quote, a freak accident in training. I mean, that guy has no luck at all, does he, whatsoever? I mean, we got people like our Welsh Rugby unfortunate, Ollie Griffiths, Leon Brown, etc. But I really do feel for McLeod because the injury gods just will not give him a break whatsoever. So bad news daily, isn't it?
Yeah, and it does just seem to be it's a different injury every time. It's not like the same injury time after time. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's a shoulder, it's a hamstring. This time and by all accounts, it was quite a nasty injury to his ankle or his leg or whatever. But you're just like, yeah, give him. He's a hell of a player when he's on the pitch and he's on form. I just like to see him there. It's one of those players that. Were you at that game where Josh played the whole game and didn't get injured? Yeah, that was a good game. That was a good game. Do you know what I mean? It's one of them. But I wish him all the best because we need him now, definitely.
I have a question for you about Josh McLeod. When do you? He's 26 now. He's made appearances over nearly 10 seasons. Was it 2015 he made his debut? Something like that. When do you sort of say, right, enough is enough? We can't just keep paying you to sit on the physio bench because you've got a wealth of talent and Scarlets. It's not like you're getting rid of him and you have no one there. When do you say enough is enough?
Okay, so I'm going to throw a name at you now that you won't hear about for another 2 or 3 years, and that's Tian Sparrow, who's currently playing for the under-18s.
Great name.
Yeah. So when Tian,
not a real person.
when Tian Sparrow makes it into senior academy, that kid just destroys teams. He was like a beanpole last year. He was like that, and he just got into so many places and turned so much ball over. He just wrecked teams. It's just a shame everybody else around him was a pair of pants. But when he makes senior team, then Josh McLeod has got a replacement. So that's my answer for you on that one. Sam, what do you reckon? At what point does somebody turn around and say enough's enough, Josh?
Yeah, I think it's difficult. I mean, it's always difficult when players are getting injured because partly it's the nature of the game. And so you can never sign someone expecting that they're gonna stay injury free. I guess you get a little bit of that with Snyman, where they basically paid him presumably a large amount of money for 2 seasons to play whatever it was, 3 games or 2 games or whatever it might be. But I think it has to go into the decision making process that you can't hire someone. Well, partly it's one of the reasons why you probably should build a team with a lot of depth and pay money to the depth rather than get massive names but with nothing below them, because the chance of anyone seeing through seeing out a whole season without getting injured is very slim. So I think it has to factor into the discussion. I suspect his contract will probably be being reduced. If you can't play and then the contract comes up for renewal, I suspect it would be renewed on a lower amount. So I guess teams will be getting around it that way. But I think there would come a time where you have to just say, look, it's not, we're not getting enough for the investment. But ultimately, it's never really the player's fault. So it's always hard to make that call.
I agree with that. You could ask the same question about Ollie Griffiths at the Dragons as well, by the way. Very, very good player.
Owen Lane. I'm sure we've all got a player who in our the teams you represent, you'd think that about.
Oh, mine are perfect.
Yes, moving on. So finally, we have some disappointing but unsurprising news. So on Sunday evening, Squidge Rugby uploaded his long-awaited Rugby World Cup final review video. that was attracted over 100,000 views. I was looking forward to watching it actually this morning because I saw it was getting really good feedback on social media last night. This morning, on Monday morning, the Stuffy Dinosaurs at World Rugby had removed the video off YouTube, and they've given Squidge Rugby, the channel, a copyright strike. Now, Robbie wrote on X this morning, after just a few hours up, the video has been taken down manually by an employee of World Rugby and copyright strike given to the channel. Some 60 plus hours of work went into that one video. So rest assured, we shall try our utmost to get it restored, but this is not in our hands. We've spoken about this already on the pod. We talked about it when Francisco was with us. And to me, this is just another example of rugby shooting itself in the foot again. We are such an insular sport, rugby. You know, it's not prepared to grow and reach new boundaries because it's so insular and it wants to stay in its little bubble. And World Rugby really needs to work with content creators and not threaten them, because people like Squidge have got a massive audience. He's got a huge following. Why can't they work together? Why can't they just allow Squidge to promote the game? Because his videos are fun, they're informative. We all learn something from them. And it's just depressing, isn't it? Like it's disappointing, this news, but it's unsurprising. We all saw at the World Cup, World Rugby constantly taking down clips. Anyone sharing them, no, not allowed to show them. And I just don't know what to say about it, really. I don't know what the answer is, but I just find it really depressing and quite angry that rugby continues to shoot itself in the foot and become such an insular sport that they're not allowing really talented content creators to share the game and spread the love. I just find it really, really frustrating.
I think if you listen to after the Scarlets game, Dwayne Peel and Toby Booth had a conversation about, and they drifted into how you coach younger kids. And they were basically saying that you coach them using videos like what Squidge does. So
yeah,
with that in mind, Sam, how effective are Squidge's videos in terms of like spreading the love for the game, but also in terms of, what you do, player analysis and structure analysis? Where does it sit, and how frustrating is it for you to see something like that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think his video is absolutely fantastic. I say his, I mean, it's obviously Robbie and Will now on board to pull those together. So I think they appeal to their audience who are newer to rugby, and rugby doesn't really have it doesn't have a kind of a, it's not that well known about even amongst people who've been fans for a long time. So that audience is really vast. It's not just people who are a year into it maybe, but it's people who are like still 5, 10, 6, 15 years in, who maybe still need to be pulled down the road a little bit in terms of how rugby works. So I think it's they're massive for that, really, and for getting to that audience. And then obviously they're the gateway into other types of analysis where perhaps it's maybe it's going a little bit more in depth or focusing on a particular area, which I guess is the core of player or team analysis. So it's all in the same ballpark, and it is frustrating because I think rugby often thinks it's probably a bit bigger than it is.
Yeah, it's true.
And
agree.
Gets in these situations where they, bigger sports could probably afford to. Well, actually, bigger sports like baseball, for example, will basically give out all their stuff for free, and you can use the videos, you can use the stats that are out there, then you can do all that yourself without needing permission. I think World Rugby is particularly egregious for how they deal with this. And yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, obviously, I was involved with them during the World Cup, and it's not necessarily that straightforward on the inside either. Like, there's not the access to the rights isn't something that even World Rugby has a particular grasp on. So I think that there was an issue probably a few years ago where they sold the rights and probably sold too much control with those rights, and that's coming back to bite them now. So I have some sympathy with them, but it sounds like in this case it was they themselves took it down, which I don't know how true that is, but I think that they have missed a step here. Then you hope when they next review and they next sell the rights that they include something in there, because people like Robbie and Will help get the game out there in ways that other perhaps more mainstream broadcasters can't.
So while we're talking videos, then let's talk about your experience with videos on Tinternet and all of that kind of stuff. How effective do you find it? Is it good fun for you putting them together? Or, is it a lot of work and very little reward? Do you make connections? How does it work for you?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I've found trying to produce my own videos just too much hard work, really. I think it would be effective. The stuff I did during the World Cup Beyond H on the World Rugby channel was basically quite involved, but then someone else was editing it and putting it together and make it look good and all that kind of stuff, which is quite a nice combination. I think doing things like threads or pulling videos from matches and talk about what they're showing. You can have a thread up in kind of 10 minutes and it can be quite involved. You can tell you a lot about what they're seeing and kind of quite entertaining, informative. And that's not a huge amount of work. I mean, obviously you have to spot the stuff and all that kind of thing, but it's much less than producing a kind of 10-15 minute video. But I find it really useful. It gets it out there. You get players, coaches, analysts who are interested in what you got to say, and then you can just build connections from that, really. So I think anytime you produce something, a podcast, some tweets, whatever it might be, you start getting people who perhaps you'd never have normally been able to reach, who are now interested in that. And I do think that's the kind of thing that that Twitter's been able to do, is it's really been able to pull people together who perhaps wouldn't normally have come across each other's work, and that has helped push stuff forward. Not just in rugby, in lots of different sports, but it's helped push that forward and kind of break some of those barriers down that would previously have prevented crossover.
Cool.
That's it. I'm a bit gutted that you said you don't want to do any more videos, because I loved your whiteboard rugby series.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to do that again.
It's good.
I found it really good to help me think a bit more. Actually, even though I've sort of picked up playing again and thinking about certain things in defence. But part of the main reason you got you on is because me and Lee were very excited about a very particular thread you put on, with us both being very huge Strictly fans. So can you boil it down for us why rugby needs to be more like Strictly Come Dancing? Is it just that we need more glittery tops? Or
I think that would help. Yeah, I think I'm definitely on board with that. I think the two main things about the thread were that if you think about Strictly Come Dancing, it is, I mean, very few of us beyond perhaps a drunken dance at a wedding do dancing to any kind of serious level, and very few of us, if any of us, have any experience with competitive dancing. Yet every year, Strictly Come Dancing is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, shows on TV. And in that show, they take a sport or an action, whatever you want to call it, a hobby, I guess, and they make it really popular, and they also make it quite complex. So when you listen to the judges' feedback, it's quite complex. And they do it by being really excited about what it is that they're talking about, and not trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator. So if you've never watched dancing before, you've never watched Strictly before, and you go on there and you'll have, Craig or Anton talking about neck positioning, height of shoulders, and all this kind of stuff, which you wouldn't really know what they're talking about. But if you watch a couple of episodes, you'd be there, you'd be kind of on board with it. And I think what rugby tries to do, especially during the Six Nations and the World Cup, when it knows that new people are there, is it tries to really dumb it down to the level that, the idea is that anyone could follow it. But what often ends up happening is that no one is really that interested, because it's so basic that if you know anything about rugby, it's too basic for you. And if you know nothing about rugby, then it's kind of a bit meaningless, because they're not really telling you anything that new. And also, rugby has this habit of really kicking itself, and not accepting that it's really fun, like it's awesome, and we all spend both time and money following rugby. Yet so much of what you read, especially after the World Cup final, so much of that was about how awful it was. And yet, just what was it, 2 weeks before, we saw France, South Africa, Ireland, New Zealand, which were arguably two of the best games ever at the Rugby World Cup. And there was no corresponding kind of this is one of the best games you've ever seen. Here's why it was so brilliant. Here's kind of 1,000 words on this game. And so I found that really depressing. And the problem is, if you're like, when you're a teenager, it's really cool to kick stuff and go, oh, it's all rubbish, I hate it. But you should really grow out of it. And if you don't grow out of it, then and you're put in a position of power, like a lot of the journalists are who are kicking it, you end up 5-10 years time going, oh, hang on, I've kicked it to death. Like all my moaning about it has ended up in it going either going completely, which I don't think will happen, but certainly reducing in numbers and reducing in the number of people playing it and watching it and just being excited about it. So I think rugby does need to get more. It needs to be more excited by itself and more positive about itself. It doesn't need to be cheerleady, but when you watch a game like France South Africa, if you can't come out of that with a just unbelievable positivity, then something's gone wrong.
That's a really sort of really great way of, and definitely, I think rugby correspondents definitely put into that cheerleady mindset, and I think the obvious candidates are ITV and the All England panel. I think are the worst for it. They are equally, I think, really harsh on England at times as well, with the criticisms and obviously the comparisons to the World Cup winning side. In terms of your video analysis, what was your process? How do you start? Do you look at? Do you think that particular topic that comes into your head, and you're just going to go? I'm going to go watch 6 games and look for all these examples. Is that sort of how it goes, or?
Yeah, so it depends really. So sometimes it will be watching something. To be honest, most of the time it's watching something and going, "That's quite unusual." Like whatever it is that's happening, that's quite unusual. And sometimes it's obvious what the unusual thing is, and sometimes something just doesn't look right, and it's trying to work out what it is that doesn't look right and trying to explain it. Sometimes it'll be led by the stats. So often I will find a load of stats from the second division of France or whatever, and see if that tells me anything interesting, either really surprising or showing one team being particularly good or particularly bad, whatever it might be. So that's normally how it gets, where it comes from. I think as well that often it's about doing something slightly different to what is normally out there, because there's a lot of things about England's kicking, is it boring, that kind of stuff, and I quite like to explain how it's not, but equally sometimes it's worth just looking at the defensive structure of some second division French team, and people can learn stuff about that, and I find it interesting as well. So often, because it's, especially on Twitter, because it's just the stuff I'm interested in, I'll just do whatever it is that interests me, and then when it comes to writing articles, obviously that needs to be a little bit more broad, but usually it'll just be either something that's out there, something of the moment, or it'll just be something that I've identified which I find quite interesting. So it's quite fun really, because it's just quite free and you can just go ahead and do it. When it comes to teams and players, obviously it has to be a little bit more focused about what you can actually change and what you can give to teams to make them a bit better. But if you're not doing it for teams, if you're just doing it for yourself, it can be whatever really.
And just a question for me, Sam. Where do you see the future of rugby analysis, particularly from a social media point of view? So I've already said to you about the problems that Squidge has had. An account that I really enjoyed following, EK Rugby Analysis. I'm sure you're aware of that account. Yeah. Now, last week, unfortunately, he came off to it and he said, because of the copyright strikes and he was losing interest in the toxic online conversation, that he's decided to stop it altogether, which is a massive shame. And other guys like Jared Wright, who did the gift drop, they're just fun to look at and enjoy, and you learn so much from them. But with all that stuff going on, where do you see the future of rugby analysis social media? Because it's very difficult now, isn't it, with all these copyright strikes and what have you?
Yeah, it is. It's massively difficult. And I think the problem is that I think there's two things which probably EK kind of flagged really is the copyright thing is a problem, especially if you try and monetize it, where to be honest, I've always kind of used the Twitter stuff as a way to get other stuff, so like whether it's with teams or whether it's articles or whatever. So I've never really monetized it. It's never being a something where if I lost it, I would lose my income or anything like that. But for people who do monetize it, I think the copyright strikes are an issue. I also think that's always going to be the problem, is that, you know, it obviously is, on the one side, it is incredibly valuable to get this stuff out there into the public, and it will help to grow the game. But as soon as it becomes monetized, and people should get paid for the stuff that they're doing, like it's obviously absolutely the work that Squeege puts in, and the work that loads of the different analysts that you see out there put in deserves to be monetized. But I think it's always going to hit that issue of, if you're monetizing something that is someone else has the rights over, you know, that gets you in, I think, a bit of a shaky ground. But I don't know what the answer is there. I don't know whether you can pay to use it, whether they just give it for free. Hopefully in the future they would say, look, we're going to give you, 30 seconds off a minute per video that you can use, and you can use those clips for free, but we want you to credit us or whatever. Because I do think that it's probably not going to be the case that even if they do this structure in the future, that they'll say just have it for free, because obviously there's a value in those lights that they've got. So I think that that's going to be a challenge to work out how that goes. And I think that's always going to be a problem. It doesn't seem to be massively an issue for things like the Premiership or the URC or lower level rugby. It is a problem for the Six Nations, obviously, for the World Cup. And I think the World Cup this year has been particularly kind of bad in terms of how restrictive it's been. I don't think I've ever seen it that bad before. So I hope it doesn't go down further that route. I think on the other side, the toxicity, the problem is it has become very polarized. It has become very toxic. And if you're on there for a long time, unless you mute everyone, which is, to be honest, is something I do quite a lot, you end up in these debates where you're thinking, why am I wasting time debating this thing? And which, again, if you don't do that, you can come across as, hoity and as though you're not interested in other people's opinion. So it can be a bit of a minefield. And I completely understand the UK's stance that I've just fed up, and I've done this for too long. I just want to. I suspect he'll be back. I think he said he will be back, but I completely understand that. I often feel that of just it's just not worth it. It's just too much hassle. So yeah, I don't know. It's a long answer. I don't know. I don't think the toxicity is going to get better. I just think you're just going to have to mute people and do more, sadly. And maybe on another platform, because I think, Twitter, X, whatever it is going to the wall, probably. So I'm not sure what the other platform would be. But yeah, I think those are two massive issues that really, I don't think other analysts elsewhere. I've started following more football analysis and baseball analysis, and they seem pretty adept at getting video through. So I'm not quite sure why rugby is so unique in that regard.
Baseball analysis is some of the best out there, I think, because that's what they live for. They absolutely love it, and I'm a big baseball supporter, and just like the squidge type creators as well. They just get there's so much access to video content, and it's just Flynn that with.
It's bizarre with baseball. One man throws it, and another man hits it with a bat. That's basically baseball, and everybody else tries to catch it. And they make hours and hours of this shit, trying making that sound interesting, and they succeed.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
I mean, if you boil down rugby that simply, it's trying to get a ball from one side of the pitch to the other. It's But I'm with your So I know Jamie's a patron with Blood and Mud as well, but I don't know if you've heard the Sam's episode with Lee yet. But actually saying that maybe the key is, instead of trying to boil everything down and try and talk to everyone like idiots, if we just say this is how it is, this is amazing, and then give people their own time to say, oh well, I'll go and look. I ended up doing the same with Aussie having a newborn. You get up in the early hour of the morning, and AFL's on. So I started getting into my AFL because I was thinking, well, hang on, what why is everything a mark? What is this? And not having and then you just let people find out more if they want to.
I think that's the key
And I
thing.
get friends who will ask me, why is this a penalty or whatever, and then I'll say, oh, it's because of this.
Yeah,
But,
I think that's the key, because if you think about how else you get in, how you got into another sport, like whatever the last sport you got into that wasn't rugby. When for me it would probably be when I was younger, American football, but the golf, that kind of stuff. They don't go, oh, by the way, this is why this happened and that's why that happened. You just kind of watch it. And I remember taking my girlfriend to her first rugby match last year, and I kind of gave her a little bit of background, but her basic premise was, in the scrum, the team who pushes more normally wins the penalty. And 90% of the time, that's accurate. It's not always accurate, but 90% of the time. And if you just have those basic rules at the ruck, enter from your side, don't go off your feet and don't touch the ball, the vast majority of the time, whatever penalty is called will be because the team hasn't done one of those three things. And I think that it's not that much more complicated than that. Like, there is complexity to it, but I think one of the issues is broadcasters try and explain it in every single detail, explaining this is a penalty and this is what's for. And oh, actually, let's look at it in slow-mo for 5 times. Oh, maybe you got that wrong. And then that creates this illusion of it being complex. But if you did that with football, you'd have exactly the same issue. Like, if you pause every foul and looked at it and spent 90 seconds looking at it, you would have the same feeling of complexity.
So one thing, because one of the types of threads you post a lot, I quite like, is when you sort of go through stats and which stats are important, because sometimes you need context. Like, meters made is a used to stat if you're looking at fullbacks who are running it back. Missed tackles in a defense system like Wales employ with the shooting 9 is, it doesn't really matter. So for you, what sort of stats do you think at the moment are the better indicators of success?
So I think the 22 entries is a big one. So not necessarily success when you're in there, although that is important, but the number you get. So the majority of matches are won by the team who has more 22 entries than the other one. A good rule of thumb is if you have more than 10 a match, if 6 or more of them are positive, and if you have one positive 22 entry more than your opponent, you'll be basically fine. So if you did that, you would get the URC playoffs pretty much every year if you average that out across the season. So I think that's probably the key one. To be honest, I mean, kick meters is pretty useful. It's just kind of a measure of territory, really. That if you kick further than the opponent, and if you carry further than them, then more of the game will be played in their half. And if more of it's played in their half, then you've got more chance of winning. Things like number of carries, number of tackles, possession are not that useful. They were a few years ago when teams would tire easily, but they're not particularly useful now. But yeah, so I think if it boils down to just one thing, it's 22 entry difference. So the number you have versus the number your opponent has. If that's positive, then you're doing pretty well.
See, what you've just done there, Sam, is you've just spoken to Harley about spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And Harley's happy for the rest of the season now, because somebody else gets spreadsheets and somebody's spoken to him and I can tap this into a spreadsheet now. Am I wrong there, Harley, or am I right?
It's not far off. I was just thinking, Hugh, who your co-host on the Scarlet Fever pod, I bet is going to be seeing green for next few days.
He'll be off the scale.
He's going to write down.
Right, let's move on to a couple of listener questions, and then we'll talk about the games from the weekend. So a couple of questions for you all. So we put a message out this morning, and we'll do this weekly now as we go forward. And we made the mistake of asking listeners for questions and opinions and all of this kind of stuff to come on to the pod tonight, which I thought we might get 1 or 2, and we got absolutely bloody inundated. And then everybody went off on some bizarre scales. And then James got involved with somebody who once played for the Ospreys about 4 seasons ago. And then that went off on another one. So we're just going to focus on some key things here this week. So, but we will bring this back next week, and it will be a bit more kind of specific. So, if you have put a question in and it's not on here, but it's about like a specific team, then that's what we've got all 4 pods for. So it might not appear tonight, but if you've asked about the Dragons, then it might appear on Jamie's pod. The Dragons are there. Or if you've asked about the Ospreys, it might appear on James's pod, and so on and so forth. Okay, so Joe asked, am I right to be optimistic about Welsh rugby? So who's going to tell Joe that she's not right to be optimistic and that she is right? So, Sam, as our guest, would you say Joe is right to be optimistic about Welsh rugby?
Yeah, well, yeah, a qualified yes, I think. I thought more so during the World Cup until the Argentina loss. And then you think about who's leaving or who's are they. Well, I think part of the thing is who's are they left? Like with Tipplitt gone, with Alan Wynne-Jones gone, and still getting to the quarterfinals and going straight away through the group. I think that was promising. I think with Bigger gone, there's more. I knew that everyone knew that was going to happen, but now he's actually gone. I think that's more troubling. In terms of the Legions, I have had quite a positive start to the season. I think that the Welsh Legions are going to be okay. But I mean, the amount of money that's available, Cardiff and Scarlets in particular, it's very small amounts, and so there's a huge gulf which I'm not quite sure how it gets crossed, and then there's a kind of a lack of funds. So having said qualified, yes, I'm struggling to now back that up and not be like a straightforward no. But my heart says qualified, yes. I think logically, slight no.
Okay. So, Jamie, this is a question for you. So, Bigger's gone, Anscombe's gone, Costello was going to be the next 10. He got crocked on the weekend. Owen Williams went off injured on the weekend. Who's Wales's number 10? If we play a game next week, who's Wales's number 10?
It's a good question, isn't it? Because at the moment, I'm not 100% sure. Callum Sheedy had a good game for Bristol on the weekend, didn't he? He had 3 try assists. And I was speaking to someone on social media today about it. I said, if he gets more game time and he continues to play like that, then surely he'll be in the reckoning. But it's a very difficult question to answer. It is a massive void at the moment with, Costello being injured. Owen Williams, as James has said, isn't fit. I mean, I've seen, with the greatest of respect, because I do like him a lot, but I've seen people mention, Angus O'Brien from the Dragons. He's not international standard. He's a very good club player, but he's not international standard. Kai Evans, I think, is a fullback, not a fly half. I think that's his best position. Again, I've seen people talk about Will Reid. I think Will is a very talented young player, but is not ready at this moment in time. I said to you on the Scarlets, I know it's a very difficult tour to South Africa. I thought Johan Lloyd actually was one of the shining lights on that tour. I don't know if he's ready for international rugby. I know he has played a couple of times for Wales and he did look a little bit out of his depth, didn't he? But that was then. Yeah, it's a very difficult one for Gatland to to solve with all the injuries. But I mean, I guess he would. I would say he's probably looking at Callum Sheedy, and he's probably looking at Johan Lloyd. He's going to have to look. He's going to have to dig deep, I think, isn't he, for some fly halves because the depth just isn't there. And I've said it before so many times. We're going to miss Bigger when he's gone. I think people are truly going to recognise and realise just how important Dan Bigger was to Wales. So, yeah, massive hole at the moment. I don't know, but I would say probably like Callum Sheedy or Johan Lloyd or probably Kai Evans.
Or the weird madness of Thomas Williams.
Oh, I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But to me...
Even as a Cardiff fan, I'm no. Even if you want to go for Callum Sheedy and have Thomas Williams kicking goals, fine, but don't put him to 10. Because I know that is the one point about Sheedy is he did miss like 8 points off the tee. And
yeah, he did, yeah.
Whereas Johan Lloyd is 100%.
Springbok showed that you need a 10 who's getting his goals.
You need a
If you
goal
want to win
kicker.
anything, you need
Yeah,
a
I
goal
spoke
kicker.
about this on social media today, though. I think to me, that's a damning indictment of the 10 position then. If we're seriously considering Thomas Williams as an option, doesn't say much for the other 10s in Wales, does it? So it's pretty
No.
worrying. It's a difficult position to fill.
So that last question was from Martin, by the way. Big fan of the show. Big fan of the show.
Oh, he is.
Martin.
He
He is a
absolutely
massive
is.
fan. So question for Harley and James then. So this one is from Dave. I watched all 3 games over the last weekend and I quite enjoyed it. Am I weird? So
I can't speak for the Munster Dragons game. I've only seen the highlights of that. The ones done on Scrum 5. I mean, Ryan Woodman's try, I thought he took that very well. That thing. I'll be honest, if I wasn't a Cardiff fan, I would have quite enjoyed the Scarlets game, the Scarlets Cardiff game a lot more. And I mean, it would have been nice for the Ospreys to have got the bonus point. And when we go into the reviews, I'll sort of explain my reason why I think they really needed that. But I mean, it was an enjoyable game. I mean, let's be honest, who hasn't beaten the Sharks these days?
I knew it was coming.
It was coming. I agree. I, in different ways, enjoyed all 3 games this weekend. Jamie might disagree here, because he is a Dragons fan. I don't think the Dragons played that badly. I just think they were really wasteful in their chances. They got into 22 a bit. Dane Blacker and Ryan Woodman set for a lovely try. In terms of the Cardiff Scarlets game, it wasn't probably the most high quality rugby, but it had a bit of the grunt behind it. But they clearly both went out there wanting to do a job on each other. And then I think the Ospreys Sharks game was, if you were a fan of big defense, a bit of heart and young players and stuff like that, you weren't necessarily there for the free flowing rugby. Brilliant. Well, there was definitely something there the weekend for everyone. But you're not alone in saying I enjoyed all 3 games. They all had their moments which you thought, yeah, these are good fun. I like Welsh rugby. And then you step back to reality.
Okay, so Dave, don't worry, you're not weird. Okay, fantastic. So we will move on to reviews of last week's games with a listener's question. I say it's a listener. So Carwin, ex-presenter, just cannot leave the pod alone. His question was, how awesome were the Ospreys? And when I asked him for a bit more detail, he went, nope, no, that's just the question. That's all you're getting.
Same old Carwin. He always pipes up when the Ospreys win. When they lose, we don't hear from the guy.
Hear from
and then
him,
they
do we?
get a win, he starts piping up again, cocky then.
Yeah.
Still early days, Carwin. Calm yourself down.
So
say to that.
I stand by response to his message, and I say it was a 6 out of 10, purely because they haven't got the bonus point. And I think one thing that, remember, Cardiff had the same win-loss ratio as a lot of other teams who made the playoffs. What we didn't do was score enough points. We weren't scoring 4-point bonus point tries. We weren't getting the losing bonus point. And that is going to, and that could be a pain for the Ospreys in games when they should have gotten the bonus point and didn't. And if you finish 9th and don't make Europe a thing, don't come crying to me, James.
No, if we finish 9th, I'm going to nosebleed, Harley.
You'll only get 2 bonus points against Cardiff, all right?
Oh, crikey. So James, how were the Ospreys on Friday, mate?
7-10 was not. I don't think that's a fair judgment. I think that, yes, all right, the Sharks were poor. I want to address this straight up because Jamie talked about it on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, that yes, the Sharks were poor. They were wasteful in possession. They got turned over 20 times or something like that. But at the end of the day, they're still a big South African unit. They look at that first try. Got some lovely angles. They move the ball really well. and he goes over. Who is I'm really starting to enjoy Buthelezi a lot more. He goes over in the 3rd minute, and I think everyone everywhere just went, right, this is gonna be a long fucking evening. Me included. I literally just sat down, properly, and they went over in the 3rd minute. But we have to credit that just hunger and work ethic from that young Ospreys team. I think it was an average age of 24 or something like that. And the players propping up that age, Ranger, Owen Williams, Tom Boulton, Luke Morgan. The fact that I'm talking about Luke Morgan as an elder statesman is fucking scary, right?
Yeah.
But Harry Deeves made 19 tackles on the night. And going back to Sam's point earlier about saying, yeah, he made 19 tackles, that's not a great stat. It's where them tackles were, the effectiveness of them. He was a nuisance at the breakdown. Really slowed ball down. James Ratty had his best game after the Ospreys. And I think the one everyone's talking about is James Fender, and rightly so. He was fucking awesome on Friday. Both revealed after the game that he was sort of thrown in as the lineup for the Ospreys that week, which for a young man, in his first senior start is a big thing, and he was awesome. It was a bit gritty, rough around the edges, gave away a penalty, some silly errors, but was still really good. And there's a lot to be excited for there. And I bit my tongue a bit earlier when we're talking about the optimism factor. If you did watch all 3 games this weekend, you would have seen some really, really good young Welsh talent that playing at the regions and starting to get that. Tim Shanklin's convinced they don't exist, but they are there. And yeah, full credit to Mark Jones as well. And I've forwarded the questions, is his defensive system working and whatnot? Actually, it was really good. He said in the post-match interview that our attack fed off our defense, and we did score our 3 tries by accident. Let's not beat around the bush. It wasn't like the other weeks where we've been scoring nice first phase moves or worldy tries from Max Nagy in our 22. It comes off pressure. The Max Nagy try comes off him, clearly identifying that off that line break they're going to make the kick, so he makes that decision, capitalizes on it. Jack Walsh, who I thought again had a brilliant game when he came into 10, probably the 3rd game in a row now where he's changed the game. Puts that little dinking over the top. The pressure that it's a mistake from the Sharks. So win's a win. It was a good night. Everyone enjoyed. The fact that as an Ospreys fan, I'm talking about being gutted, not getting the bonus point against the South African team, is a good thing. I want more of that. I'm the game saying I'm disappointed we didn't get, another point. That point would have put us on 11 points. In the top 4, probably where we belong. So
Get away with it, man.
Cowan's back on the pod, is he?
Yeah, here we go again. Fucking Ospreys off again.
What a load of bollocks. Fucking hell.
But still, the points that we've got from 3 rounds, before the season began, I would have bit your arm off. Going away,
yeah,
it's a good start. 10 points from possible 15, is it? Yeah.
So, Sam, you saw most of that game on Friday night. What did you think of it as an example of how young kids can come through the system? Because, like James just said, it was a really young side, and pretty much most of us were expecting a right tonking, especially after those first 5 minutes. But kids showed up well. What did you make of it, mate?
Yeah, I was really impressed. I mean, I actually only saw the bit where there was no point scored. So it was, I probably saw the worst half of it, but I thought it was really impressive. I think there's a lot to be said for bringing, these kind of times. Obviously, the Wales Barbarians game was questionable about whether that should have gone ahead, whether it should have gone ahead now, all that kind of stuff. But there is a value to having young players be forced into these positions to kind of go and see how they get on. Sometimes that can end up negatively. You look at the first 2 matches for the Scarlets this year, where it hasn't worked, putting primarily young players in those positions. But if it does work, and obviously it did on Friday night, it's massive, because you get a load of people who haven't been burnt by these endless kind of legion losses, and so you just get young players who are new and fresh and excited to go out and play. So I thought it was really impressive, and I think the Ospreys now will face that question of how do they drip feed the big games back in? Do they just next week change it all down and put them all back in, or do they keep faith with the team who was so successful on Friday night?
It's interesting that bringing players back in, because Jamie, you will know this, Leinster put a tweet out today that said all of their internationals are now back and training and ready to rock for their visit from the Dragons. So,
well, case by case basis is what they said. That doesn't mean they're going to chuck all their internationals into the game. What they said was they're back into training, and each player will be reviewed on a case by case basis. But you would expect them to, probably play a few their internationals, which is unsurprising. I could see that come in, to be honest. But the Dragons will have their internationals back as well, so it won't be too bad. But it probably will. But you get the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah. So let's talk about your trip to Munster over the weekend, then, James.
We're moving on to that, are we?
Yeah, because otherwise we're going to be here until like midnight again, and Harley will be going, no, I've got a spreadsheet I want to talk about. So let's talk about Munster Dragons. What did you make of it?
Well, rest assured, I won't be talking too much about this game, so we'll be quickly moving on soon. So Munster 45, Dragons 14. So it was quite well known that Dragons were depleted going into this game. They lost 7 players to Wales, more than any other region, to that Barbars game. And we had 13 players on the injured list. So from the get-go, we were up against it. We had a lot of kids in our team. We had Wales under 20s captain, Ryan Woodman. He was making his first start for the club. Then we had guys like Ewan Rosser, Nathan Evans, and Barney Langton-Cryer. They're all making their club debuts. Now, look, Munster had a young team as well. I mean, let's put into context, though. They did have a young team, but they still had the likes of Shane Daly, Rory Scannell, Craig Casey, John Ryan. So it was still a pretty good team. And the fact of the matter is, whether it's a full-strength Munster or not, or whether it's a team of kids, they're still Munster. And they're URC champions for a very good reason. And I think we have to bear in mind the gap between these two teams in terms of budget, resources, depth, and quality. It's huge. And that can't be glossed over. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. So this performance, this result was unsurprising whatsoever, because we knew it was going to be difficult. It didn't get off to the best of start. So 2 minutes into the game, Angus O'Brien goes off injured. And then Audrey Williams comes on and ends up playing fullback, who, in fairness, had a very good game at fullback. And part of me wonders now if he's going to get the nod at fullback against Leinster, because he was pretty good, in fairness. His kicking was good, and he made a couple of line breaks. So maybe that's a future position for him to go forward in. But not a good start. I thought Munster's tries the first half were soft, if I'm being honest. I think a good team wouldn't have allowed some of those tries to be scored. I do think we scored a really nice try, though. I don't know if you saw it. Ryan Woodman got his first try for the club. It was a lovely crossfield kick from Dane Blacker. It was really well finished. I think that put us 17-7 at half time. And by that point, we were sort of clinging on a little bit, because Munster had opportunities, but then they were making mistakes. So it was a scrappy first half, and that was benefiting Dragons more than anything. So, 17-7 at half time. But then second half was a completely different story. It was more of a blowout, I'm afraid. And once Thomas Ahern scored that early bonus point try in the second half, it was just one-way traffic, and then it became sort of predictable. Dragons did score a try right at the end of the game for a driving maul, which is always nice to see, because that doesn't often happen with the Dragons. But at that point, it was nothing more than a consolation try. So, result as expected. I think for me, watching the Dragons the first 3 games, our attack is a big problem. So our scrum has improved. I know that's hard to believe, but our scrum has improved. And our set piece work is on the whole pretty good, although there was one Bradley Roberts overthrow which led to a Munster try. But other than that, our set piece and scrum have improved. But our attack is a big problem. So we're creating plenty of opportunities, but we're just not scoring them. And that's been a theme throughout the first 3 games of this season. And Dave Flanagan talked about accuracy. I think that's a buzzword. We lack accuracy and execution within the opponent's 22. And let me give you an example of what I mean. So in the second half, we was in Munster's 22. We put Munster under a lot of pressure and they were giving away a lot of penalties. We kicked to the corner once, that didn't work. Then we kicked to the corner again, another penalty. So on the 3rd time of asking, we kicked to the corner. And I'm sat there thinking, right, you got to come away now with something here because we're putting Munster a lot of pressure. We got to turn these pressure into points. And I was watching the game on S4C, and I think it was James Hook and Andy Moore on commentary, and they were both saying, the Dragons got to come away with something now. You know, they got to make this count. And as soon as they said, I thought, I know what's going to happen here. And you can probably guess what happened. We came away with nothing because a driver more and Bradley Roberts grounded the ball, but he was just short. And it's frustrating to watch this because, like I said, we are gaining entries into the opposition 22. We're creating chances, but then we panic when nothing happens. So when we're not creating anything, when we're not going over the game line, we'll start like throwing wild passes, or we'll try a clever inside ball, and then it gets spilt. We're not patient enough. It's a very, very frustrating to watch. And I think Dave Flanagan, in particular, Matt O'Brien, who is our backs coach, he's got to work really, really hard with our backs because something's not clicking. And it's really, really frustrating. And, it doesn't get any easier now because we got Leinster this weekend. Then we got the Ospreys at home again. And then we got to go to South Africa, to play the Sharks and the Lions. And I've said it before, I am really worried about the Dragons this season. I know a lot of people thought the Dragons were going to improve, that they were going to be one of the best Welsh teams. I saw some people saying, they'll finish above Cardiff or that sort of thing, and they could win the Welsh Shield. But I'm worried for them. And someone who we know quite well, Johnny McGinty from the Scottish Rugby Pod, I was listening to a podcast that he was on. He did a URC preview, I think it was Scrum of the Earth. He's predicted the Dragons to finish last. He thinks that Zebra will finish above them. And I've watched Zebra now this season. Okay, they've lost their games. But you know what? They're scoring tries. And they should have beaten Ulster first up. They could have beaten the Ospreys. And they were just very unlucky. I think it was the Bulls, wasn't it? They played. Is it the Bulls, South African team? I can't remember. But they look good. They are improving. And I think this could be a season for the first time ever. Dragons have never finished bottom of the league or last in the conference. But it could happen. It honestly could happen. And if I was a betting man, which I'm not, but if I was, I would probably put a couple of quid on Zebra to finish above Dragons the way things are going. Because, we'll have our Welsh internationals back, but there's no guarantee we'll win games, and Dave Flanagan said after the game, there's not a lot of positives to take in the moment. It's been a tough 3 weeks, and I'm looking at the fixture list, and I honestly don't know where the next win is coming from. It's very, very difficult. So, result is expected. Tough times ahead for the Dragons, I'm afraid.
The bit I like about that, James, is you started that with, I'm going to make this really quick.
Oh, they mean shorter than James, surely. I'm shorter than what James would have done.
Mate,
it's my fault, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's your fault.
The Pope will give a Sunday service that is shorter than James's version of what happens at the bloody Ospreys, mate.
You thought you're below me in the leagues. Fucking shit.
So, Sam, did you get a chance to see any of the Dragons game or anything over the weekend?
I didn't, unfortunately. I will catch up with it at the start of this week, but I think there is a danger of the Dragons slipping below Zebra. I think we've seen how well Treviso started this year, so that the moves one Italian team from the equation of finishing near the bottom. Can't see any of the South African teams doing it. Can't see any of the Scottish teams doing it. I can't see any of the Irish teams doing it. So it does feel like it's going to be between Dragons and Zebra. But to be honest, it's hard to pick. I think probably the Dragons are the weakest Welsh region, but it's still very early days and a lot could happen. And it's been a tough start to the season in terms of those matchups. And I do think that the Dragons probably miss more than we'd imagine maybe just with some of those Welsh. I mean, numbers wise, it's not so much, but I think in terms of experience, there's a few missing there. So
yeah,
plenty of time left. It'd be good to just need that wing, don't you? Or a couple of wings under the belt before Christmas, and then
yeah,
I don't think things can look up from there.
yeah, absolutely.
Okie dokie. So Harley, I'm going to ask you about the Cardiff Scarlets game now, right? But you're not allowed to say Cabango and awesome. Okay, you can say anything you want apart from Cabango and awesome. Okay, so Harley, what did you think of the Cardiff Scarlets game, mate?
Starting props are shit. I'll be honest. The thing that my initial thought after watching the game back was it reminded me very much of the game this January. If you remember the one, not the New Year's Day derby, the one just the game just after, where Cardiff, for whatever reason, somehow had a scrum and a maul. The problem was that the maul was great, but we couldn't get the ball to the maul to do any damage, and then we seem to forget that with. We're in a weird nether region where Cardiff are trying to play like the Ospreys, and Ospreys are trying to play like Cardiff, and do like wonderful like backs moves and stuff. It's very unsettling, and it's coming to the same sort of results. Where Ospreys are getting lots of bonus points. That they've 11 tries in 3 games. Cardiff has scored 7 in 3, and it's just it just wasn't good. It's just really irritating. I mean, part of that's inexperienced centre combos, but we can't really blame that when you've got Joe Roberts and Eddie James, and that's Eddie James's second start, who was fantastic, by the way, absolutely brilliant. But you can't, and I like De Beer. I can see where he's going, and he's got Cardiff's kicking game working really well. But it's like we don't have outside backs. But Cardiff are playing 10-man rugby, and that just seems weird and unusual, and I don't like it. And as ever, whenever Cardiff do have the nudge on in the scrum, we never make it count. We spent far too much time faffing for that try after we got Kemsley Mathias sent off. And then as soon as Wyn Jones came on, basically Scarlet Scrum sorts itself out, and then we've got that's basically our own one platform. It's not really much.
Okay, so tell us about Cabango's try then.
Well, it was a lovely counter-attack crossfield thing because Scarlets don't know how to make one-up tackles, and then, much like Sam Costello, injures himself scoring a try.
I mean, when he went down and he was in a lot of pain when he went down, you could see it straight away. But
I would say that
nobody near him.
Johnny McNichol was literally pretending to be a baby sloth on his back at that point. I would like to point out.
But I mean, how gutting is that for you when your player gets injured scoring
when
a
you
try?
think about it, he's our, we've got him who's our excellent, try scoring left wing, when our other excellent try scoring left wing is injured because of Wales. Our first tight head prop is injured because of Wales. Our superstar number 8 is injured because of Wales. I'm sure
it's a theme developing here, isn't it?
I'm sure Jamie understands some of this as well. But it's just one of those, you're then not thinking, well, they're all our positives and they're all slowly being injured. We're already having Seb Davis and Tamani, our 2 second, and Tamani's probably our best second row, who's playing at 8 because we haven't got anyone else to play 8 because both them and Falato are injured. And just like,
how could you run out of back row players? How does Cardiff run out of back row players? I mean,
it's because we get very nice 7s, what we don't do at 8s. Dragons, 8 growing out of their skin, and they've managed to break all of them as well. So I don't know what's happened in the east of Wales, but like everyone who's a back row player seems to have just been kneecapped over the summer.
Sam, did you manage to watch any of the Cardiff Scarlets game? Because it was a mighty second half performance from the Scarlets. We won't talk about the first. We'll leave the first half to one side, and we'll just focus on the second half. What did you make of it?
Well, I'm about half an hour through the first half, so I've got all that yet to come. But I think I do think that obviously Scarlets had a terrible double trip away in South Africa, and they've got the Lions and Leinster up next, so it could easily have been 5 matches on the trot without a win, and at that point you're very concerned for how your season's going. So I think to get a victory there is absolutely crucial, and massive, really. Like it potentially changes their season around. I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens in these next two games, because the Lions at home is a potential for the upset. I just can't see any team really beating Leinster this season. If they're in any way interested in playing the game, obviously they only lost once in the regular season last season, I think it was, and that was when they played, even younger kids than they normally play in the URC. So I think that's going to be a match that I can't see the Scarlets winning. But if they get another win against the Lions, then that's really starting to get the momentum going in their favour.
Well, I'll just throw some names around then from the second half, because I thought Gareth Davis was outstanding on the weekend. I thought really, since he'd been dropped for Wales, he's come back and he's just, I don't know if somebody gave him a foot up the arse or whatever, but he's really improved his game since then. I thought Ioan Lloyd showed, glimpses of what he can do. I would like to see him kick for the corner a little bit more and control the game that way, but I thought, what he was doing was superb, and his kicking off the tee, I think, is 100% so far this season. I think somebody said that, I'm not 100% certain. And then, like you said, Harley, two centres, Eddie James, Joe Roberts. We were talking about those boys on the pod in the same way as name dropping T and Sparrow earlier. We were talking about those boys last year on the Scarlets pod, as these are the Scott Williams and the Foxy of the future. And I also want to give a big shout out to Ed Craig.
Alex Craig, the Scotland international.
Yeah, because he's had a lot of shit since he's come to us, and it was only his second or third game or whatever, but he has had a fair bit of grief, and I thought he actually started to show why they asked him to come. So and so many young boys just thrown in there on the weekend did really well. Leather Barrow as well. I thought he had an outstanding game at 7.
Barrow's fantastic.
Into that last brain dead push, but I mean it didn't.
He had 78.5 minutes of perfection, and then he nearly threw the game away in the last minute. I don't want to ruin
Scarlet's initiation, though, wasn't it? Getting a yellow card.
Yeah.
You don't do drinking games. You just have to get sent off to be a Scarlets player.
I think that's the first Scarlets Cardiff game in quite a while where a Scarlets player hasn't been red carded.
Cheers, Harley. You've been on the spreadsheets again.
I was going to actually bring in some spreadsheet stuff. Well, not some spreadsheet stuff, but I've just got the URC stats up just because just how frustrating it was being like a Cardiff fan. So we've already mentioned possession in territory don't necessarily mean much, but Cardiff were 52% to 48, so that's fairly even. 54% territory, again, fairly even. But we had 6 offloads to 3, 10 clean breaks to 3. We missed less tackles. We were able to retain more kicks with our kicking strategy. We conceded less penalties, which is a rarity for Cardiff to concede less penalties than the opposition. But every time we got anywhere near the 22, we cupped at the last pass, or the wrong option was taken and the centre had taken in, not pass, or it was so frustrating. But Scarlets, they just basically would get the ball, score, and then that was it. Then they didn't really need to do much else after that, and
I'm just wondering if I can borrow James's little mini violin for Harley.
You need a much smaller one. It's about this big. It's the same one on reserve for when Ospreys lose a game narrowly. But it was just a frustrating watch, the Cardiff fan. And I mean, even with the internationals, I don't think that would have improved. I mean, aside from maybe having Falato, which meant you had a proper second row for the full 80. Okay. I don't think necessarily Josh Adams would have improved it. I don't think Thomas Williams would have been that much better.
That's very mean, mate. That was very good.
Yeah.
Wainwright and Matthias stealing livings.
That's what I was going to say. So somebody, and I found this quite funny. Cardiff. So somebody said to us on the Ospreys pod that Cardiff fans have got to start calling what's his name, De Beer? What's his first name? De Beer?
Eunice.
Tinas
That's
De
it.
Beer.
Right. Start calling him Rupert. And a couple of people will go like, why would you call him Rupert? And going, Rupert De Beer. Rupert De Beer. And there are still people going, somebody put a gif up of Rupert the Bear dancing through the woods, and somebody's going, I don't understand. What's going on?
It doesn't quite work for
Yeah,
me, I
you might as
gotta
well-
be
you might as
honest.
well
It
call
doesn't
him-
quite work.
You might as well call him Paddington De Beer. I mean, it's.
No, Rupert the Bear. It's Rupert the Bear. Anyway,
I know a lot of military people, and a Rupert is like just a posh officer who's a bit fucking useless, which not necessarily too far. But
a Monty Python
De Beer's been a
character.
good signing. He's just not getting that backline clicked yet.
Can I throw in that quickly, just before Reece Litterick of Cardiff? We just briefly mentioned how shit Matthias was.
I thought Litterick was fantastic.
I think this sort of Litterick was really good.
Oh my!
I thought
If
he
someone
was
mark it
really
down in the
solid.
calendar, James has just complimented a Cardiff prop. Like this never happens. I want to mark this down.
It was skillful. was really solid on his. Was it senior debut? First start? I don't know.
yeah, it was a senior debut,
Yeah.
but
I thought he was
Someone
really
explained
good.
to me, right? Seriously, now, someone explained to me. I didn't watch the full game. Okay, I've only seen the highlights. On social media, I've seen Cardiff fans saying, obviously it was really good. Yeah, really held up that scrum. And then I've seen Scarlet fans saying, oh, obviously it was shit. We had him on toast. Could someone from a neutral point of view tell me who's lying? Because somebody is clearly lying. Either Reece Litterick was really good or he's really shit. But we got Cardiff fans saying he's really good or he's shit.
All I'll say is Reece Litterick didn't get sent off with a yellow card for scrummaging.
No, Matthias did, yeah.
But he was responsible for collapsing most of the scrums because his feet were too far back and his back was in the wrong position and his shoulders were in the wrong position, and that's why he went.
The ref didn't see it that way, did he?
No,
so
I know.
Clearly,
It's not my fault. The ref doesn't know how to scrum it. Anyway, moving on.
James, you play front row more often than either me or Lee because we're both back rowers.
I have one game. Yeah.
Front row.
We've all had a game in the front row. Don't highball us.
Yeah, go on. I think I do agree with Lee in terms that Litterick's feet were a bit far back, but unfortunately, Beth and Jenkins went through a period of this where paint a picture to the referee that the ref can't get that out of their head.
Yeah.
So, and I guess in a Welsh shirt had that for a couple of years. Nicky Smith went through some periods of it. I know Lee has his problems with Nicky Smith's illegal scrimmaging as well. But they left a picture to the referee that it's actually the other person doing something wrong. And what Matthias didn't do was do anything to resolve that.
Yeah.
Matthias, he's not being helped by Wainwright either.
Mm.
I think Wainwright and Cara, I joke about the anti-props. Wainwright, if Wainwright was a bit more of a smart prop there, a bit more of an option, he would have maybe helped out by being a bit more legal.
Yeah.
Because it just balances it out a bit. You know, that's all I'm going to say on that.
And ultimately, referees haven't got a Scooby what's going on in the front. And like you say, they take a picture of it and they go, it kind of looks like he's doing this and he's doing that. And then they shout at some boys that are bigger than them and then give a penalty to one side. And let's flip a coin half the time. Anyway, let's move on to some predictions. So, Sam, I really want to get your views on some of these games for the weekend because these are going to be some cracking views. So, let's start with Cardiff and the Bulls. So, Harley, you've already filled yours in. Oh, I tell you what, he loves the spreadsheet, does Harley. Oh, fair play.
I'll be honest, it is a favourite. Whenever I open up Firefox, it's one of the first tabs up. It's on my auto tabs, the spreadsheet.
Okay.
That and my sad one when I was looking at predicted Wales squads and then Gatlin ruined it by picking 2 9s.
So, Sam, your thoughts on Cardiff v the Bulls and the score prediction, if you could.
Yeah, so I think the Bulls will probably have a bit too much for Cardiff. And I would say the Bulls by. Do I buy them out on the actual score?
Yeah, do a buy. Do a buy
Okay,
amount.
I think the Bulls by 15.
Oh. Now Harley's gonna love that because Harley's already written. Harley, what have you written?
I've also gone Bulls by 15
Bulls
because
by
I think
15.
I think because I was thinking back to the last time we hosted the Bulls, and it was really close right to the end, and then you had Bismarck Duplessis just ripping balls off everyone, and then they ended up pulling away in the end. But I think a big part of Cardiff doing so well that game was our backline worked really well, and it functioned really well, and we were basically able to get around the balls. And I don't think, although the kicking game's quite good, I don't think our backline's working well enough to get around the physicality of the Bulls pack. And I think the Dragons showed as soon as you've got that slightly bigger, more physical pack, Cardiff wilt. When they were up against the Benetton starting pack and the Scarlets pack, they were a bit more evenly matched, so Cardiff were able to impose themselves. And I don't think they're going to be able to do it with this Bulls team. So I think, I mean, 2 to 3 scores quite easily. As much as I hate going against my own team.
Yeah.
Okay, James, your prediction: Bulls and Cardiff.
Yeah, Bulls by 17. And it's just too much. I don't see, like Harley highlighted the injuries earlier. I don't see who's going to come back in and make all that of a difference to that team.
Okay. Jamie, your call on it?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with a Bulls win purely because I just think they'll have too much for Cardiff up front. As Harley mentioned, I think when Cardiff come against a really strong pack, that's when they're going to struggle. They've got a good back line, but I think up front is going to be where they're really going to struggle. So I'll go for Bulls by probably 7.
7. Okay. So I'm not going to go against the grain on this one either. I'm going to go Bulls by 20. I think a lot of it will just depend on the weather. And if
You love saying that.
I do.
That's your catchphrase. It depends on the weather.
It does. It really does.
Bloody game.
It's a bloody plastic pitch, and it shouldn't depend on the weather. But the slippiness, the slidiness, it's bloody horrible.
The way that the Arms Park pitch, when it's wet, balls just die. They don't bounce. They just sort of plonk, and it sort of absorbs all the momentum.
4G stuff in it.
Yeah.
But then you can slide in from the 22. You can dive on the 22
with the most wonderful friction burns. I remember after one Cardiff Scarlets derby, and all the Scarlets players moaning because they've been sliding around. It's like, well, you know what happens on a 4G pitch. No one made you slide for that try.
Okay, right. Next game: Ospreys versus Glasgow. Sam, your thoughts on this one?
I think this is pretty massive because Ospreys then have a run of quite winnable games, including this one. I think the Ospreys will be smart about bringing some players back, and they will just take it, but maybe by 2.
Interesting. Okay, Harley, you've gone for.
So I've gone for Glasgow by 2, and I'm already second guessing myself on it because I do think it's going to be quite close because Glasgow are sort of riding high, clicking very well. They haven't really had to make any changes to their squad. I think Ospreys are still trying to work. I think if they keep Walsh, Nagy 10-15, that's going to help them really well because I think the one biggest question with Jack Walsh's game last season was kicking at goal, but he's been pretty much spot on.
He's only missed 3. He's missed 3 once, 1 per game. I want to say.
But I mean, I think Owen Williams was actually kicking a lot. But again, we've discussed he probably wasn't fit, but I think it's been very close. I said I'm going Glasgow by 2 purely on previous form and the teams that Glasgow beating Leinster, albeit a slightly rotated Leinster, but it wasn't exactly a full strength Glasgow either. And I think I'm leaning more towards Glasgow on previous form than anything because I don't think Ospreys have played. They've played the Sharks, who seem to wilt against teams they should be beating, and they scraped past Zebra. So yeah, I think I said I'm sort of airing on them. Hope James wouldn't hate me too much for that, but I mean, I don't think he really cares what I think.
Nope.
I hate you for other reasons, Harley. It's not that.
So,
I'm joking.
James, you've got a bit of a reputation to build on here from Carwin about blind optimism about how many the Ospreys are going to win by. So, Ospreys in Glasgow prediction from you, James?
I really don't like predicting Glasgow games because I think it was the last season they came down to us, and I thought, oh my god, we had our international, but I said, we're going to get a bit of a tonking here. Glasgow good side, and we end up winning like 32-17, and that was only because we conceded 2 tries in the last 3 minutes or something like that. So I'm really struggling, and I think what Sam said rings true, and I put this out on Twitter as well on the Irie account about who does Booth in to fold, because there's the argument of yes, you bringing in British and Irish Lions and international quality, but you're upsetting the balance of a settled squad right now. A squad riding higher morale and confidence and team spirit. So where do we make them changes? I think you bring Adam Beard and Fender back onto the bench, and that's not because Fender had a bad game. I just think that you're bringing in someone of great importance to the line out, and it takes the pressure off Fender again. I think you have to bring in Jack Morgan and Justin Tipperick. Simply because they're Jack Morgan and Justin Tipperick. And again, this is really harsh on Deves and Ratty. But I think the way they'll fit right back in. You can't drop Morgan Morris, obviously, because he's been out of his skin. Again, like Harley said, just at 10 or 15. Really important, I think. I think he will start with Nagy at 15. He'll start Walsh at 10. Does he bring in George North? Is one of the big questions for me, because I know, Lee, you have the problem with how George North defends at 13.
Yep.
You may have mentioned it once or twice.
Once or twice.
Mentioned it, yeah.
I'll show you some pictures one day.
And I'm thinking that Williams didn't have an amazing game against Sharks. He had an alright game. Does he put Owen Watkin at 12 and bring in North at 13? So there's some selection dilemmas, but I'm confident that we're riding high. I think I'm going to go Ospreys by 5.
Ospreys by 5. We got there in the end, James. We got there in the end. Mate.
Fuck me, you're talking about my review being long, about Munster Dragons.
Look, fans get what they want, all right? And that's good quality analysis and me. All
right. Jamie, your Ospreys Glasgow prediction.
Well, it's going to be much quicker than James's, I can tell you now. So I like Glasgow. I don't like them at all. Actually, that's a blatant lie. They're a very good rugby team, Glasgow, and they had a good win over the Stormers. And I am tempted to lean towards Glasgow. However, I just got a feeling about the Ospreys. I think that win over the Sharks is a massive confidence booster going into this, and they are at home. And I can see them edging this, So I'm going to say Ospreys by 3 points.
First by 3. Okay. So I'm going to shock you here, James. I am. I think if you do bring George North back in, play him at 13. Half of his problem is he doesn't spend enough time at 13 to understand how to defend at 13. So I'm actually going to go for exactly the same reasons as Jamie has. That I think the confidence boost, and I wouldn't bring Jack Morgan in. I genuinely wouldn't. I'd leave him on the bench and bring him on just because I don't think he's had a break since he's probably played 18 months of solid rugby. So he'd just be asking for an injury. So I'm going to go Ospreys by 4. And make the most of that one, James, because they don't come along very often, mate. I can assure you of that. So there we go. Right. So now we're on to the interesting game. So Sam, Scarlets and Lions. So before we do this one, so we interviewed, I interviewed Rito from the Stormers a couple of weeks ago, before we played the Stormers, and he said to me back then that the time to play South African sides is the first week that they tour and the fourth week that they tour. So on the first week, they spent 16 hours on a plane. They get off at Heathrow, and then they've got to spend another 4 or 5 hours getting to Lechley. Then they have a day off. So they've flown out today. They won't get here till tomorrow night. They'll have Wednesday off. They'll train maybe a little bit on Thursday. They might have a run on Friday. Blah. So good time to play the Lions. So your prediction for Scarlets v Lions?
Yeah, so I think there's partly that and partly the Lions have just had poor start to the season. And so I think the Scarlets getting that win on the weekend is crucial. So I think the Scarlets will just about have enough here. I think the Scarlets by 7.
Good. See, we should have you on more often, Sam. We should have you on more.
Well,
often.
wait until the result.
Harley, you're I can see you adjusting your score as we speak, mate. I can see the screen.
Fucking Sam, now is he?
Well, actually, no. I was second guessing myself and going. So I've originally put them Scarlets by 3, purely because I think it's going to be one of those games where Scarlet's going to score a try, Lions will get one back, and then I think you could end up with, like 8 tries being scored by both teams, and it's basically going to be one side will miss a kick or two, and I think it'll be and they someone will just score a penalty just to try and get that little bit ahead or something. Basically, because I think Scarlet's down to their core would rather beat you by scoring more tries than necessarily stopping those tries. Mm-hmm. And Lions like to throw that about a bit, and I imagine with the Lions, they know they've got nothing really to lose. Yeah, they're always expected to lose whilst they're on the road. Scarlets, they'll have a sense of false confidence by beating Cardiff, and so I think it's gonna be a close game, but it's gonna be quite high scoring, unless it's absolutely pissing down with wet, and then I can imagine one team kicking the other one to death.
So your prediction would be
Scarlets by 3.
Scarlets by 3, right? Okay. James, your prediction?
Lions by 12.
Sorry, who by 12?
Lions by 12.
Lions by 12. I thought that's what you said. Yeah, just wanted to check.
And after you were so nice about the Ospreys, Lee.
I know.
Vibes. No, I just have one of them feelings that Scarlets are going to be really inconsistent in their performances. And are you going to be able to back that performance up? Because I think Bill hinted the fact that it was a really emotion done after that South Africa trip, and there was a lot of emotion in that performance. A lot of boys there proving a point. Coming off that tour, that tour didn't define who they were. I just think Scarlets then are going to struggle to back that up. Are they going to be able to find that same emotion to go into that Lions game? So I'm going to go Lions by 12.
Okie. Jamie?
Yeah, so I watched Benetton Lions yesterday, and it was a really good game. And I tell you what, it was one hell of an arm wrestle, and Lions were quite unlucky. But I think on the road, I think they're stronger at home, aren't they, the Lions, than they are on the road. I don't think they're particularly good travellers. And I don't know, I just got a feeling the Scarlets will probably see them off. I don't think it'd be comfortable, but I do think it'd be something like Scarlets by, let's just say 5. I think they'll have just enough for them. But they're not to be underestimated, because I do like the Lions. I don't think they get the credit they deserve. Yes, they are the weakest of the South African franchises, but they are still a pretty handy team. So, I'll go Scarlets by 5 on that one.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot they played in Italy.
Good game.
Yeah.
Really good game.
Yeah, it was bizarrely. I was watching the updates. So it is the second week of their tour, but it's you're Italy and then you're Wales, so they might fit another day of training in, but it's not going to be a massive amount. And I think if we stick with Eddie James, we're simply Yohan Lloyd, Eddie James, Joe Roberts in the centres, with maybe Johnny Williams to come on later in the game. I think that'll be enough to do what we need to do. Essentially, I think Plumtree coming back into the back row as well will probably be the difference that we need to just shore it up and take some of the stuff off Fifita, who scored an amazing try, by the way. So I'm going to go Scarlets by 10, just cause. Fuck yeah, yeah. That's
your expert analysis. Is it? Scarlets by 10 because fuck it.
Because fuck yeah, yeah. That's my. Yeah. Okay. I spend all week coming up with that one. So, right. Last game then, and we'll wrap it up with Dragons v Leinster. So, Sam, give us your thoughts on this one.
Tough one to call this one, Sam, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I've run the algorithm on this one, and it's coming up as Leinster. I'm afraid.
Really, you surprised me.
Yeah. We'll see if it's worked by the end. I think it depends exactly what their team is, but I suspect it'll be Leinster by 20. But it does depend a little bit on their team. If they bring the big guns, I think that. If not, I think it'll be a little bit less.
Okay, Leinster by 20. Harley, what have you gone for, my friend?
I mean, I'm basing this purely on the fact that Leinster haven't done particularly well in the Welsh region, so I feel like they've sort of underestimated the sides a bit. And they may have said that a lot of their island stars are available. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to select them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that it'll be a bit closer, and it's going to be Leinster by 8.
Leinster by 8. Okie. James, your thoughts?
Leinster by 6. I think it's going to look that horrible seasons ago. Was there something like Leinster, the 1-point victory against the Dragons a couple of seasons ago?
Yeah.
Where I think the Dragons are going to be able to pull Leinster down to a level which they're not comfortable at. Because teams have done it before and have beaten Leinster when Ospreys last won out in Leinster. That's what they did. Right, it was Ospreys B team versus Leinster Zeds, but they brought them down to a level which they weren't comfortable at and won't be able to adapt to. So if Dragons can do that and they can eke out penalties, is Kai Evans fit? I didn't watch the Barbarians game. Did he?
Sorry, I didn't catch you then.
Kai Evans.
Yeah,
Kai Evans.
He
he's
pulled
fine.
through. He just moved to fullback.
Yeah,
they just moved him to fullback to take Lee up.
If he's fit and playing, and you can kick penalties, there's no reason he can't stay in within a score.
So your analysis there is you've got to make Leinster come down to a really poor level and then rely on Kai Evans.
Oh no.
Yeah.
This is where we're at in Welsh Rugby.
Sounds like a plausible game plan, in fairness, though.
Jamie, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's hard to see anything other than a Leinster win, isn't it? Although I will say the past two games between these two teams at Rodney Parade have actually been really close. So a couple of years ago, it was 29-35 to Leinster. And then in October 2021, it was Dragons 6, Leinster 7. So at home, we've actually pushed Leinster quite close and we've given them a bit of a scare. Will that happen this time? I don't think so. I'd be interested to see the team, the Leinster put out. Like you said, are they going to chuck all their Irish internationals into it? I don't think they need to, if I'm being honest. They probably will chuck 3 or 4, but I don't think they need to go fully loaded for this game. I think we need all our Welsh internationals back for this, but if we're going to get anything out of it, we need our Welsh internationals back. Dai Flan can't afford to be cautious now. We're desperate for a win, and he's got to try and get something out of this game. And I don't know what the injury situation is like. I know Angus O'Brien took a knock. As I said, in our Munster game, he's a big loss. But yeah, it is hard to see anything of a Leinster victory. So I'm going to go for Leinster by 15. I think it'd be a good couple of scores. They'll decide this game.
Okay. And I will round it off. So I'm going to annoy Jamie here because I'm not going to do that, Jim. Jamie doesn't like me predicting Dragons wins because it's like a nail in the coffin for him. and anyone showing any positivity towards the Dragons is not a
No,
good
it just,
thing.
I tell you what I don't like. It feels like you're patronising. When you predict the Dragons win, when you know full well they won't win, you're just patronising. That's what it feels like. Do you think they'll honestly win this game? Be honest.
Not a hope in hell.
Exactly.
But didn't I say at Judgment Day, I predicted it for like 3 weeks before that Dragons were going to play shit and then suddenly turn up on Judgment Day and spank
you
us,
did, but with respect, that's the Scarlets and this is Leinster. So this is a completely different level playing field. So it's not quite the same, Lee, is it?
No, I'll agree with you there, mate. I'm going to go Leinster by 20 on that one, mate. I think you're in for a real rough weekend on that one. So
you said that last weekend.
I did.
You're going to just keep saying that. I think you're in for a rough weekend. Rough weekend. Who they play in Zebra? You're in for a rough weekend.
Yeah.
That's how the season's going to go. I can feel it.
I can't please you, can I? Either I predict that you're going to do well, or I tell you you're going to have a shit day. You just can't. I can't win, man. Right, gents, it has been a pleasure as always. Sam, I want to thank you very much for coming on, giving us some insights. I personally agree that everybody should be wearing sparkly tops and spray tans, and I think that would make the game much more interesting.
That's the key takeaway. And thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Good. How can people find you on social media, Sam? What's your things?
So at Sam L Scans Up on Twitter, X, wherever we land on that one.
It's still Twitter, and let's be honest, we still call it Twitter.
For me, it's still Twitter. And that's pretty much it. Maybe at some point in the future I'll have some kind of Blue Sky or whatever it might be. If you want to read any of the stuff I've done, Rugby Pass and Rugby World, and if you want to watch the stuff I did during the World Cup, Beyond 80 on YouTube should give you access to that.
And we share that stuff quite regular as well, so people will pick it up off there, mate. It's been a pleasure having you on, gents. It's been a lovely evening this evening, so I want to thank you all. So James has just messaged to say that there's some late breaking news that Stephen Jones has signed for Moana Pacifica as their backs coach. I thought that was announced a while ago, to be honest, but
it's officially confirmed. It has been rumored, but tonight it's been officially confirmed. That's a good move as well, Stephen Jones, isn't it? Fair play.
Yeah,
that's another.
And I will say, the photo that they got of him must have been taken about 10 years ago, because he did not look like that when he finished with Wales. I can assure you, he's smiling, his hair is dark, and all sorts of stuff.
So the Turkey training camps, didn't he?
Started with Wales.
Yeah. So, gents, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy your rugby, and we'll do it all again next week. All the very best. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.